Are you new to PUBG on Xbox and PS4 and having a hard time finding a sensitivity setup that works well for you? Then you've come to the right place. In today's video, I'm going to run you through my current settings and also explain why I have things set to where they are. That way, even if you don't want to run my exact settings, you'll be equipped with the knowledge to tweak the settings to what works for you. If you simply want to see what settings I'm using, there are image links in the description of this video. If you find this video helpful, consider subscribing to the channel, and keep in mind that I stream PUBG on Twitch 3 times a week. There's a link down below. I recommend using a Type B controller setup. The main difference here is that you hold the trigger to aim down sight, rather than tap the trigger in a toggle function. Personally, this feels a lot more natural, and is more similar to other first-person shooters, including Call of Duty. Personally for me, I find this a lot easier to quickly aim down sight, and it feels a lot more natural when you're trying to quick scope or quickly swap between targets. I personally invert my Y-axis. I've said this a number of times in the past, there's no real reason why I have this inverted, it's just because that's what I've always had since I played Halo, so I don't think there's any real benefit to having your Y-axis inverted. The thumbstick dead zone pretty much refers to how much input the thumbstick needs before it registers as movement on your screen. So a higher dead zone means that your thumbstick will need more movement before it registers and moves your character on the screen. And a low thumbstick dead zone means that your thumbstick requires less movement before it's registered, and effectively just makes your thumbstick a lot more sensitive to movement. I personally have my right thumbstick set to a dead zone of 1 because this is the thumbstick that pretty much moves your character around, and you don't need these movements to be that precise. For my left thumbstick, I have this a little bit higher at 4, and the reason for this is that the left thumbstick controls your aim. And I find that if I have this too low, I tend to overshoot targets pretty quickly. But also I want the lower dead zone to allow for those fine movements. I keep the controller vibration on at a setting of 1. I personally feel like this really just immerses me in the game, and I think it's really a personal preference. I also don't feel like a vibration setting of 1 is enough to put off your aim, but does quickly alert you to when your character is taking damage. I now have my forward running sensitivity set to 50 rather than the default of 20. The reason for this is that I pretty much am always either running or stationary in PUBG. I very rarely crouch or creep, because if you're doing that, your enemies can pretty much hear you anyway. And I have the same rationale for the movement sensitivity, which I have set to the maximum of 100. As far as the vertical multiplier is concerned, I've kept this at the default of 100. I personally feel like with the scoping sensitivities that I run, which I'll show you later in this video, there is no need to change the vertical sensitivity multiplier because I'm yet to find a weapon that I can't control the recoil of. Moving on to general sensitivity, I've kept this at the setting of 13. General sensitivity pretty much means how quickly you can turn your character from side to side, up and down and in circles when you're not aiming down sights. The value of 13 is pretty high, but it pairs nicely with my lower aim down sight sensitivities that I'm going to run you through in a moment. Aim acceleration is one of the trickier settings to get your head around in PUBG. Aim acceleration pretty much means how quickly your camera will reach maximum turning speed and is only initiated when the thumbstick input is greater than 50%. For a lot of you, that probably still doesn't really make sense. So I've got some examples here to demonstrate. You can see in this first clip, aim acceleration is turned off, which pretty much means that there is an even turning speed. And here I'm holding my joystick down as far to the right as I can, which is essentially 100% thumbstick input. But remember that aim acceleration is activated after 50% thumbstick input is achieved. For the next clip here, aim acceleration is turned on to a setting of 1. Again, I'm holding my thumbstick 100% to the right, and you can see that there is a gradually increasing speed that the camera turns, up until the maximum turning speed. And finally, in this example, aim acceleration is on and turned to the maximum of 10. And you can see that as I push my thumbstick 100% to the right, the camera quickly achieves the maximum turning speed. So now that you actually know what aim acceleration does, what is a good value to use? I personally use a setting of 1. I find that this setting is fast enough to keep up with moving vehicles and characters moving left and right at a pretty close range. But the main benefit is that it gives you a deadly stability for your recoil over mid to longer range combat. My settings for over the shoulder aiming pair with this quite nicely. To make up for a low aim acceleration, I run over the shoulder aiming at a setting of 13. This pretty much means that when your enemies get that close to you that you can't keep up in speed by aiming down sight, you can switch to aim shooting, because you generally don't need the precision of aim down sight at such close ranges. Moving on to talking about my scoping sensitivities. You can see here that I run generally pretty low sensitivities for scoping. My 1x optic is set to the setting of 3, and paired with the aim acceleration of 1, this allows you to control recoil like this over mid to longer range fights.
Sit there, buddy. Oh man, that risk paid off.
That's not to say that you can't control recoil if you run higher sensitivities, but personally, especially for newer players in PUBG, I would definitely recommend starting off with lower sensitivities and gradually building it up as you get more comfortable. Personally, I've played this game pretty much every day for 3 years, and I still think that this is the best sensitivity setup. My 2x optic I have set to 5, a little bit higher to make up for the longer duration it takes to scan with a 2x scope. And then I have my 3x optic set to 7. The reason I've got this set a little bit higher is because I use the 3x optic on assault rifles and shoot them automatically rather than single tapping. For this reason, I want to be able to keep up with closer to mid-range targets, meaning that I need a little bit of a faster sensitivity to be able to keep up with them as they move across my screen. The sweet spot for me for the 4, 6 and 8x scopes is a setting of 4. I personally feel like if you're sniping and switching between targets, you should really be coming out of aim down sight between your shots. Meaning that as long as you have a higher general sensitivity, there's really no need to have a higher scoping sensitivity. And for this reason, you can run a low scoping sensitivity on these sights and give you that extra stability that you need so that when you aim down sight, you can connect on your targets consistently. And the 15x scope is really just a meme, so I'm not even going to talk about it. Although it is kind of fun, I guess. But just put it on 20. So I've done a bunch of sensitivity setting videos in the past, over the past few years that I've been playing PUBG, and for the most part I've had really good feedback, especially from beginner players on Xbox and PS4. So hopefully you guys find this useful in improving your aim in PUBG, and if you do, feel free to let me know, and remember to subscribe to my YouTube, and come say hi on Twitch if you want to see me using these settings live in action. Also, stay tuned for part 3 of my beginner tips video series, which will be coming out over the next week or so. But anyway, that's going to do it for today. I hope you found this video useful, and I'll talk to you guys soon.